Here's the Scott Gorham.
What's the last name?
Gorham, Gorham.
So, but this one is a king. So, are they registered under a different name?
Could be. It should be Scott Gorham, Gorham. We just transferred to this hotel from another one.
What's your name?
My name's Turbin-The.
The other one is also king. So they're both kings.
What about the parking?
Hi, this is Nick's friend. Can I have your layer machine? Parking, you shouldn't have a problem. Thank you. Okay, it's going to be on the second floor, 206.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, have a good day. In the evening.
I'm here with legendary Scott Gorham from one of my favorite bands of all time, Thin Lizzy, and of course Black Star Riders.
Black Star Riders.
Here in Los Angeles.
Cool.
Downtown in your hotel room. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm such a big fan of your playing and your contribution
Thank you so
to
much.
rock and roll and all of the arts forms around it, heavy metal, and just all the amazing songs that you have written and that I've heard when I was trying to get bigger, when I was this big.
I tell you, that's what makes it kind of tough when you do the set list. It's not so much of what you play, it's what you don't play. And there's no satisfying everybody. Why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you do that? Or how could you not play blah, blah, blah? So you have to really kind of backstage think about what you're going to play that night, So we have a whole catalog of things we could keep slipping in and out of. So that's a pretty good, hard thing to have.
That's amazing. And you're on the tour right now with Judas Priest and Saxon and
Yeah.
Black Star Riders. So,
That's right.
So we're here in Los Angeles. You guys are playing the Microsoft Theater.
That's right, yeah.
Material that's come to light of Thin Lizzy and Phil Lynott. So
Right.
my understanding is that there's about 150 songs that were given by Phil to like a friend of his or something, like kind of a comrade or something back when. And of course he's passed now since, 86?
Yeah, it wasn't actually individual songs.
Like a tape, a cassette
Yeah,
tape.
there were reels that were, not only this guy had, but there was another sort of warehouse that all these tapes were in, and there were names on there that I don't recognize that name at
Dirty
all.
Old Town, does that ring a bell?
Yeah, and there was one.
Is that one that you worked on, do you think?
Probably, but there was another one called G.I. Joe.
Right.
And what the hell is G.I. Joe?
Is that the one that became Boys Are Back in
Yeah,
Town?
that's exactly right.
Wow.
Phil had written this whole sort of, at that point, I guess it was still Vietnam going on there, and she had written this anti-war thing, right? But after Rob and I got done putting the harmony guitars on there, Phil kind of flipped, I thought, the anti-war thing doesn't really go with, the mood of what we've come up with, right? So he had another song, which became, The Boys Are Back in Town. So I'm glad he changed, I'm glad he saw the
He's
light
open
now.
to creating and kind of growing and changing, and that's all part of the process, right?
Phil was really great on his feet in the studio. He was having a tough time coming up with a rhyme that actually meant something. And for him it had to actually really mean something. He wasn't a Moon and June kind of guy, right? So, but I can still remember he'd, bend over at the microphone with his cans, and they'd come up and go, right, let's try this, right? And invariably he just would come up with it. And you're like, wow, that was really cool, man. You're really thinking on your feet there. So.
But what's amazing to me is you were the guy who, you went over to the UK, right? You had a family member, a relative that was, or a sister or that was married to someone in Supertramp?
Right. Bob Siebenberg, he and my wife initially moved to England because we were both, huge British musician fans. I mean, we liked the American side of things, but it was like there's always Clapton and Traffic and Peter Green and Procol Harum, and all these kinds of musicians that really struck a big note with us. You know, we weren't so much, you know, I like the Allman Brothers and all those kind of bands, but it was the amount of songs and really amazing songs that came out of this one small island. You know, how does that even happen, right? And it just seemed to be hit after hit after hit, just kept being churned out of this island. So it's like, we gotta go, you know, we gotta see what this is all about. And he ended up joining Supertramp. And
Was it over there that he did that?
yeah.
So he came from over the U.S.
Right.
He went over there.
Right.
So he was kind of an example of someone who came from the U.S., joined a big band.
Right. Well, they were not big at this point.
So he was forming it. at the time.
Right. The Supertramp were not big at this point at
Okay.
all. But when he came back over to get his visa re-stamped, he gave me this cassette. He goes, "Hey man, you check this out. This is actually pretty cool stuff. It's way different from the stuff that you and I have ever done before." And I put this cassette in, and the level of craftsmanship that went into these songs, I'm like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And he goes, "Yeah, you know, I think I can get you into this." Right? Wow, really? Incredible. Because, like I say, they were still shifting around, making, you know, trying to figure out what guy was going to play what and all that. But by the time I finally, you know, worked up enough money for the ticket, for the plane, I got over there, and they were settled. So that was me not being in Supertramp.
So it could have been Breakfast in America instead of Dancing in the Moonlight.
Yeah, well, it could have been. But, you know, in a way, you know, things have a really great way of working themselves out. You know, I think about it now, and as great as it would have been to have been in Supertramp, I don't think, in fact, I know for sure I would not have gotten the training as a guitar player out of Supertramp that I did get with playing with all these guys and Thin Lizzy and of course Phil, right? So I think it absolutely worked out in the complete right way in the end.
And for me too, because I wouldn't have gotten the training listening to Live and Dangerous a billion times.
There you go. So it worked out for all of us.
Yeah,
Right?
the twin guitar attack and, you know, just
Okay.
amazing songs.
Thank you.
Just, you know, for me, it's such a passion to meet with you, and you know, Thin Lizzy to me is, you know, the fact that you have Black Star Writers and you're going and you're putting out new albums, and
Right.
you know, you guys had a Metal Hammer Award. Actually,
Yep.
you did.
Yeah, probably because I'm the last man standing. I don't know, you know, but yeah, you know, going back to the Black Star Writer albums and all that, we, in the beginning, you know, we were thinking of, you know, recording a new Thin Lizzy album, right?
And what year was this exactly?
Well, no, this was, it was just like 4 years ago,
Okay.
4 or 5 years ago.
So you guys are done with the cycle with John Sykes, like you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, what's the crossroads here?
Well, you know, we'd already done with, you know, with Ricky and all that. We'd done several tours, right? And you know, management said, "This is, you know, to further this thing on, we need more, you know, new material, blah blah blah." And I'd been avoiding this very subject for years, right? And now it pops its head up again, right? And I'm realizing that, well, yeah, you're right. So I'm going along with this, like, okay, and Ricky and Damon, they're like diving into it head first, trying to keep the, you know, sort of the same vein of the Lizzy sound going on, right? And they did a great job. But I'm feeling more and more uncomfortable with this. And you gotta remember, every Thin Lizzy album I was ever on, you know, there's Phil right there. I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with the guy, right? So now my thought is to actually take the name and do an album without him. This was pretty unsettling for me, right? So after a while, I finally had to go to the rest of the guys. I said, "Guys, listen, this is what I'm thinking, right?" And you could see it in everybody else's face, kind of the relief, like, because nobody wanted to follow what, you know, what we did in Thin Lizzy. It was unfair, and the comparisons were going to be limitless, right? So that's when we decided, well, we'll knock the Thin Lizzy thing on the head, and we will go out on our own and start all over again. And that's how the whole thing began.
I think it's amazing, and it's great to have music from you and from Black Star Writers, and
Yeah.
you know, you guys are putting out very cool albums and
Well, I hope
great
so.
stuff.
You know.
Yeah. And
We're
the
trying.
and the riffing and the guitar playing and the music, the composition, I think is really interesting to me, because you know, Phil Lynott, you know, when you joined Thin Lizzy, you had an audition process. I mean, kind of like your.
When I joined Thin Lizzy?
Yeah.
Well, apparently, I mean, I walked in on this audition. I was the only guy there. It was this African dinner club called the Iroko Diner or whatever, right? And all these, there's all these black guys in the back there with flowered-colored shirts on. They're putting the plates and the silverware out and all that. And nobody had told me anything at all about Thin Lizzy. I'd never heard of these guys. I don't know what to look for. I'm just supposed to find this guy Phil, right?
Wow.
And introduce myself. We'll look it up.
So who turned you on to that direction?
Well, it was an Irish guy that used to come up and jam in London with me, right? And he actually said, I know this Irish band that are looking for a guitar player.
You said an Irish band, like
no, Irish rock band.
Okay.
Right off the bat, I don't even know what that means. So is that bagpipes or with guitars? I had no idea, right? But so I walk into this club, and because of all these, black waiter guys, somebody said to my right, he says, hey, are you Scott? And I turned around and went, yeah, and it's Phil, this black guy, right, with this broad Irish accent, right? And he goes, yeah, man, I'm Phil. How you doing? I went, okay. This is pretty fucking cool already, right? I'm into this, right? And I could see already this guy had a thing. I didn't know what that thing was, but he kind of had it, right? He walks me into the rehearsal room, and that's when the other two boys kind of stood up, But apparently I was the 25th guy to be auditioned, right? And finally, they had recorded the whole audition, right? And they sat back at Phil's place and listened to it and said, right, he's the guy, and I got the call that night, and they asked me to join the band.
So amazing. How old were you at that time?
I was just about 22 years old.
Okay.
Right.
So you had a few years to kind of get to that place and be ready, sharpshooter.
I'd only really been playing guitar for like 3 years. Right, I've been playing.
You used to play bass,
yeah,
right?
That's right.
You moved from bass to guitar.
Yeah, absolutely. I played bass. A friend of mine who had played guitar in a few of these bands, he unfortunately died in a motorcycle accident. And he taught me, a few things. I thought, well, I'm going to step over to guitar and see what happens there. So
it's a good choice.
furiously in your back bedroom trying to work things out, right? So that's it. Yeah, but so I'd only been playing guitar for 3 years when I joined Thin Lizzy, right? I don't think a lot of people know that, but so I had a lot of making up to do, bang, really quick, because I'm looking at Robbo, and this guy is like, in my eyes, he was like spectacular, and he was only 18 years old, for God's sakes, The sound, if you want to say unique in Thin Lizzy, is because Brian and I were just different kinds of guitar players, but somehow we came together all the time and we made it work with his style and then my style. We just gelled it together and it came up with this sound, So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I was saying a little earlier that I had the pleasure and opportunity to meet with Brian Robertson in Sweden in 2006, because I did a show with Sweden Rock and his band that he had at the time, I think an all-star lineup for playing some Thin Lizzy songs or some other songs.
Sure.
He was there, and we were hanging out, and when the sun was up in the middle of the night in Sweden, the Northern Lights, and we were, Brian was behaving himself very well, and
good man, good for you, Brian.
He had someone looking out for him, but we were sitting out there on the park bench in front of the hotel that's near Sweden Rock. There's one of them that's a lot of the artists stay at. Mm-hmm. So we're there, and I had these Cuban cigarillos or whatever. So I'm like, Brian was smoking cigarettes. He's like, here, I'll take one of those. Yeah, Cuba, all right. So we had a really nice conversation. It was just for me, just a really, what a sweetheart of a guy, and
cool.
Just really, have a lot of love for Thin Lizzy and appreciation for the artistry. I mean, Phil as an artist, I mean, what an iconic prolific songwriter, and as you were talking, just a charismatic person. And I meant to ask you, when you first met him, like you're saying, there was some kind of thing that you felt. Was it a joke? Did he? When I say a joke, did he say jokingly things, or did he?
No,
was it just his vibe? Or
yeah, it was more of a presence kind of deal. I mean, when he obviously I'm the last guy in the band, and I didn't know really how the power structure worked and all that. But you could see that, when Phil spoke, the other two guys like, okay, all right, gotcha, fine, then it was all that. So like, oh, okay, this Phil guy, he's the guy. Right? I mean, that's how little I knew about Thin Lizzy. I had no idea he was black. I had no idea who else was in the band. I had no idea about their music at all. And a big reason for that is by the time I had gotten to London and their big hit Whiskey in the Jar, it had come and gone, right?
And that's with Eric Bell,
yeah.
right?
And they weren't playing it on the
days.
radio anymore. They weren't really being written about in the any kind of music print at all. So I never even got a chance to even read about these guys, right? So I walked in absolutely cold.
Wow.
Right. So, and I think probably in a lot of ways that was maybe to my advantage. I had no expectations, nothing. Right? Just go up there and play, and let's see what the hell happens.
And Thin Lizzy, I mean, this band was on, before you joined, they were on Decca Records. That's like the Rolling Stones were on Decca Records. You look at albums like Let It Bleed or some of the older stuff, and it's like, okay, this is before Rolling Stones Records and all that, Atlantic Records.
Well, and also at that point they did not have a record deal, right? So the idea was, obviously you put the band together. I'm the last piece of the puzzle. You rehearse for, I think we rehearsed for like 2 weeks in this dinner club, and the idea is we're going to play 4 shows. One is the Wolverhampton Lafayette Club, which was, there were more bouncers than paying customers at that one. I'll always remember that one. Then it was the Liverpool Cavern Club.
Wow.
Right? The Beatles played there.
Sure.
And all that. So I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. The third one, I can never remember what that third one was, right? But the last one, the one that counted, was the Marquee Club.
Oh, wow.
In London,
Yeah.
on Wardour Street, right? And if we did not secure a deal pretty much that night, this thing called Thin Lizzy, it was over with. It was done and dusted, right? But, fortunately, one of the record companies stepped up and said, yeah, man, we'll have those guys. So that's when we got the ball rolling.
That's so amazing. So after that point, did you guys go on to play a bunch more shows, or did you go immediately to write together? Because I know that you were given a lot of trust from Phil's side, where he's quite a songwriter, but
Right.
your songwriting and what you contributed was so complementary. It's like you guys had this synergy.
Yeah,
How did that happen?
I don't know how that actually worked out. I think Phil, loved the idea of the Americanism in the band. The American influence, right? Because we were flying a lot of flags up there at this point. You got the Irish, American, Scottish, and all that, right? So we had a lot of different influences coming in, from all corners, right? And I really do think Phil liked the American, feel and style and all that. And we were rehearsing one day, and I just had this riff, and I'm playing, this thing. He looks up and says, "What's that?" I said, "It's a riff I've been messing around with." He goes, "You got any more?" I went, "Well, yeah." And then I thought, we'll go to here, we'll go to there. He goes, "Great." And I said, "Well, I got one more thing." And I showed him, and he says, "Hey man, do you mind if I write some lyrics to that?" And I went, "Oh, hell yeah."
So it just started happening. It started just clicking, working.
But which was cool. It was my first album. The first song I'd ever written with Phil, and it ended up being the opening track on the album. It was a song called She Knows. Right.
So that was the song with.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I always thought that was kind of cool.
Now you also, I'm kind of skipping around a little bit, but you also wrote, that guitar riff, da-na-na-na, da-na-na, that's Got to Give It Up, right?
Okay, right.
That's your guitar?
Yeah, but there, there's, I think Sykes was in on that one too.
Got to Give It Up?
Got to Give It Up.
That was later on, right? A little bit.
Okay, so you're gonna mess me up here.
I'm not trying
chronologically, right?
Yeah, I'm not trying to go off. I go off of what I can, kind of dig into.
I'm trying to remember what album that was on.
But
You know what
another
album that was
one,
on?
like I'm going to some more of the not obscure tracks, but ones that I think are just so
Right. Well, you want to go deep.
stated
Right.
in terms of the melodies. I mean, I just have that experience of listening to Lizzy and
No,
loving.
and I think that's really great because here in America, most people know one song or they know two songs maximum, right? But you go to Europe and they don't understand. We had something like 14 top 10 hits, or maybe even more in Europe. So we can go out anywhere in Europe and people are fist pumping through the whole thing. We're here in America. They're like, I think I quite like that song, but I don't know what the hell it is.
And you have the big festival circuit over there and all.
Sure, absolutely.
So the album Chinatown, that was another kind of phase that Thin Lizzy went through.
Snowy White, yeah.
And that song Chinatown, you were a co-writer of that song
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
And-
Well, that started off with Snowy, just going, both Phil and I kind of clocked in on that, going, actually, I don't know if that's really a typical kind of riff, but it's got kind of a groove to it, right? We all like the groove factor, right? So we weren't the metal guys, but we loved the whole sort of groove. If you're made to do that, like, okay, we're kind of halfway there,
And there was this heavy side of Thin Lizzy, like not only the two guitar attack, but just the heaviness. And I think Chinatown, that had some of that bad reputation, but Chinatown had that heaviness where you have like Killer on the Loose and
Yep.
all that. And then later on with John Sykes on Thunder and Lightning, of
Thunder and
course,
Lightning, right.
super heavy,
Right.
very
That's when it got
polished.
a little metal, you
Yeah.
know.
I think there was the moments before where there was there's an infused piece of the heavy metal in there, but
Sure.
there was still, you guys were still like a rock band, like Lemmy Kilmister said, we're a rock and roll band, right? So you
Right.
guys Thin Lizzy was a rock and roll band, like AC/DC was a rock and roll band.
Right.
But there was heavy guitars, there was heavy moments. I mean, Highway to Hell, right? It's
Yeah.
heavy.
So then you start, what category do we actually fit in? You know what I mean? So I never, I would say, I guess Thin Lizzy was just flat out just hard rock, and that's it.
But there's so much dynamics and so much like you guys could play a million songs on acoustic guitar. I mean, it was no problem because the songs were crafted in probably that way. In
A lot of them were, it was like Phil and I would sit around on acoustics, right, and just kind of work chord patterns out, and like, okay, and that would, that sounds like a natural harmony guitar section, right? So you log that in and go home on your little cassette player and start working things out. But yeah, Phil was a guy who liked what he listened to guys who were storytellers, that were real singers, that really crafted the song out. There was a lot of melody and groove going on to these things, so it naturally filtered down to him when it came time for his turn, to write these songs. He already knew what direction he wanted to go into, and it suited me right down to my toes, because I'm kind of in that same ilk.
and just the epicness of songs like Emerald and just
Yeah.
like the complexity and the beauty and also kind of a traditional feel, like it's an Irish traditional
Yeah.
folky kind of vibe. And I thought it was just such a there's so much charisma and just the it factor oozing from Phil. Like it's almost like a Jimi Hendrix kind of thing. And it's like, I know Jimmy played in a lot of bands with different successful artists, like even with Wilson Pickett and people like that.
Yeah.
Like who knows? Like they know he played with the Monkees. So I think Phil, it's a little bit different than Jimmy, but he's just had this kind of, like, you could just see his performance and get that.
That's a good comparison with Hendrix, because he did play with all those other sort of Motown kind of things. So that's, you can feel it in his songs and the way he plays, that he wanted to get that groove factor in there. He just didn't want to be the slashing guitar player. He wanted the whole song to be really cool.
And that's one of the things I really appreciate about Thin Lizzy, is that it was real craftsmanship songwriting. It wasn't master songwriting. And it's like, you know, you're listening to stuff here and it's mellow and it's the sun goes down and these other songs, it's Southbound, but there it is again. It's like with a song like Southbound, it's not the top, top 10 hit of the album, but it's like that song's got a hook and those guitars, and I mean, I'm hearing you on that song, and it's like, oh, there it is again. You know, it's like your stamp is like all over it, and it's like, to me, that is the '70s and it's the '80s, and it's everything that Thin Lizzy is to me that I heard.
No. It's still, once again, it's disappointing that maybe a lot of people, especially here, won't go deeper into the albums to see, like, oh, maybe there is a gem for you that you would really love, but you're never going to hear it because Spotify, you got one track you're going to listen to.
I think people need to listen to Thin Lizzy. They need to start listening, because I mean, songs like that aren't written that much these days. And Black Star Riders. I mean, you're still, co-writer Thin Lizzy and co-writer of Black Star Riders.
Right. Well, I think we're trying to carry on the Thin Lizzy tradition, but it's both Ricky and Damon who are just. Ricky's a killer lyricist. My God, when I got him in the band and started to listen to what he actually wrote, I thought, oh my God, who does this guy remind me of? Right?
It's great. And there's a few names that come to mind, but one in particular.
Yeah, one in particular. And Damon is just
great.
A really committed Thin Lizzy fan, right? So it's great to be able to play with a guy like Damon.
From Brother Kane and from Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
And basically, you guys, I read a thing where I guess he was with Alice Cooper, and were you there too?
Yeah.
It was kind of like all you guys were probably on the golf course. It was Alice. Right?
Oh yeah, well I first met. I invited Alice Cooper to the golf course. Yeah, okay. I didn't know if you wanted to go there or not, right? Yeah, but he brought Damon along.
Nice.
Right, and I guess Damon was so nervous. I think we said 10 words to each other, right? But the next time I saw Damon, he was playing with Alice Cooper, and I kind of let it slip out that Vivian Campbell from Def Leppard, he's got to go back to his day job,
Yeah,
and I really want to get somebody that's permanent in there. I've already done the whole the revolving right hand door. It seems like for most of my career. Now I want one guy who I really love playing with.
Solid guys in the lineup. So that brings me to an interesting question. So there's a friend of mine that I've known for a long time. His name's Gary Shea. He played in a band called New England. I think they toured with Thin Lizzy back in the day.
Okay.
And
don't ask me to remember that.
That's okay. They weren't huge band, but they had some hit songs even in the pre-MTV days.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is Gary was sharing with me that on the shows that he did with Thin Lizzy, I mean, you guys had an album called Fighting, and I don't know if that made you bad guys, where Johnny the Fox meets Jimmy the Weed, and it's like, wow, man, are these guys in a gang or what's going on? So I just wondered, you guys had a reputation in Thin Lizzy. And I know there's a lot of Thin Lizzy questions, but I mean, how can I resist?
Sure.
It's like you guys had a reputation of not taking a lot of crap from.
No, we didn't,
people.
And it got us into a lot of trouble.
You guys got in a few brawls and
it was never really
situations.
Yeah, and here's the thing: it was never really our fault. You just want to go into. I remember there was a wedding reception at some pub somewhere. It's right next to the hotel that we were at, right? And we just kind of walked in. It's like it's not like it was a closed.
Was this a tour? Or was this a?
Yeah, we were all on tour, right?
Where was it?
I don't know. It was someplace like Portsmouth or something like that. Right?
Like East Coast U.S.
No. It was in England.
It was in England.
Right?
Okay.
And we just kind of walk in, and somebody in the wedding party took exception because I guess some of the women were looking in our direction and all that, and we were just there to have a drink, right? And next thing you know, a pint mug comes flying out of the middle of the wedding party.
Yikes.
Hits Phil right in the eye.
Whoa.
And I think I spotted the guy who did it, and I gave him the best punch of my life. He actually flew over the table. It was like, wow, man, that was actually pretty cool. But the t-shirt guy grabbed me, threw me back, and it was like, and people got put in the hospital. People got arrested and all that. So sometimes it just got way out of control.
So that's not.
And it wasn't our fault.
That's not too good for you, since you're like a U.S. citizen at the time, probably going over there, right?
Well, I've always thought about that. I got permanent residency and all that, but I'm
Nice.
still the alien. know.
You don't want to be thrown out when you need to work.
They can still revoke things if they want.
You don't want to be like thrown out for, like you're working hard and then one dinner date goes wrong and it's like, hey, you got to leave and
bags are packed, you're at the train station.
Yeah,
I don't think it would ever happen.
But I mean, that's not the only incident. Like there was Brian Robertson, who you guys had, like this was probably a turning point almost, where you're about to do this big U.S. tour, and I guess Brian had gotten to a little.
Well, he went down. He went down to a club. Got into it with, from what I hear, like pretty big and drunk guys, and a guy just smashed a bottle right on Brian's hand.
Nasty.
To the point where, it had to be all stitched up, and that's him out of the picture, right? And we're thinking, holy crap, man, we've all these contracts you signed, everything's
bad time
done and dusted, and that's when Phil said, well, I know this guy who I used to play with. He's actually a really cool player. I think we can get him up to scratch in no time at all. I went, okay, who's this guy? And he said, well, his name is Gary Moore, right? I went, okay, so this guy's really good, huh? I mean, Phil, this guy is good, right? We can get this guy. Yeah, no problem. And we flew to America. Had 1 day's rehearsal, and I was stunned. Well, oh my God, this guy has his shit together that we're not going to miss a beat, right? So we just kept on rolling. So it was great.
And after that after that time frame, that's when Waiting for an Alibi kind of happened with the next album. It was on.
Yeah.
We Gary on that.
Black Rose.
Yeah.
Came up, right? Yeah, Waiting for an Alibi, all that stuff, which I really thought was a good album.
Yeah, very melodic.
Yeah, I thought there was some really good playing, good songwriting on that. It's a pretty inspiring time.
But it still has that same signature. It still has a Scott Gorham signature. There's still that the harmony guitar playing. There's Gary Moore who has his own thing, his own sound.
You got to remember that now there's a template, there's a blueprint now. You don't just stop doing that. There's a program now, right? So Gary, when you're off doing do whatever you're gonna do, because it sounds great. But we still have a plan here, So he was great, man. I get it. I love it too, So that was never a problem.
The Boys Are Back in Town. That was just a sound that
cool.
In America, I heard Thin Lizzy, and then so I just wonder the first time on the radio or some where you heard the song.
Well, that would probably have been 1975 when you're rolling down the M1 in just coming out of London, going to Birmingham or whatever, and there was a rock show. I can't remember the name, but you listened to it every single Saturday, right, to see if you were going to be out of there.
So you were.
There we were.
And were you with the band?
Yeah. We were all driving up together.
So the whole band was there, and so you guys the car must have been swerving or something.
Pretty much. It was like, wow, I can't believe it, man.
That's
it
cool.
Doesn't sound too bad on the radio, does it? All that.
That's cool. So how was Phil about that stuff? Was he, he seemed like a kind of a humble, modest kind of guy, but also someone who really understood who he was or what he was doing. Or
Phil very much understood who he was. He worked on it. Even his dress sense, that guy just killed me all the time. He'd put something on, he'd look amazing, right? You'd put it on, he'd look like some fucking clown, right? Some guys have it, they could just pull these things off. And when you're standing next to him, you can't pull it off, right? But he just had that thing about him, right? So that sort of, I hate to keep using that cliched thing, the it thing, but he had it,
So
even with clothes.
So what happened, in the time frame where you got to Renegade?
Yeah.
And the Renegade album, you had a lot more songs on this album. In the beginning, it's okay, well, you got two, but Dancing in the Moonlight, that was your song, right?
Yep.
And that's amazing. And I got to ask a question on Huey Lewis, how he kind of came into the picture, because I think he's an amazing sax player, but he's also a harmonica player. Wow, what a incredible
he was in a band called Clover, and they were supporting us through a whole British and European thing. And we'd been on the road with them for a couple of weeks, and I just happened to be out in the auditorium where they were sound checking, right? And I guess the singer was someplace else, so here he goes, here, I'll check his microphone. And he started to sing, right? I went, really, Matt? This guy? And all they're doing is making him play harmonica? What the hell?
Got everything.
So I went back to the dressing room and I said, hey, Phil, man, you know Huey, right? He goes, yeah. because he was one of the guys, great sense of humor. Everybody loved hanging with him. Right? I said, you know, that guy can really sing. He went, really? So I said, yeah. Tomorrow's soundcheck, go out and have a listen. Hopefully he's going to sing, right? And he heard him, and he thought the exact same thing. So we were just pounding Huey. I said, man, trash that harmonica, man. You gotta get in the spotlight. You gotta start singing, right? Which just kept hammering him on it, right? Till eventually, he came up with Huey Lewis and the News, right?
That's
and
awesome.
they're #1 all over the world.
What a great story. That's so cool. I think that element that you guys brought in, like bringing a sax into a hard rock band, it's like bringing, I mean, harmonica and blues, that kind of goes together, but the sax is just,
Sure, we were up for trying anything. You know, I think we got John Helliwell from Supertramp because they were playing live at some Superdome somewhere in the city, and we were recording, and it came up. You know, wouldn't it be cool to put a sax solo on this rather than just all guitar? I said, well, I think I know the guy, you know. And John graciously said, oh, hell yeah. And he came straight down, blew this line out, which was just really a big part of the song anyway. It's got its own sort of, what's it called, Baker, who's the Baker Lou?
okay, not Baker Street.
Baker Street, yeah.
Baker
You know,
Street,
you know
Jerry
how you
Rafferty.
really remember the
Yeah.
sax solo, Baker Lou, that's a train in England, right? But, you know, John came up with this melody that's really memorable in there, right?
So
Yeah,
guys,
I think he also played oboe in there and someone a clarinet thing.
so you had this thing in Thin Lizzy, you guys were eclectic. It wasn't just like, hey, let's go get, you know, double bass drums and get, you know, guitars and just kick some ass and just thrash, but it was more like, hey, dynamic songwriting,
And I have
acoustic
a
dynamics.
theory about that too. Why probably Thin Lizzy wasn't as big in America as a lot of people say we should have been. It's because we were that way, you know.
You're a real artist.
Well, that's not for me to say.
I think
But what I'm getting onto is each album had a completely different sound than the one came before it or after it, right? And I think it seems, you know, audiences in America, they want familiarity. You know, they want to know what they're going to get on from album to album, and we just didn't give it to them, you know, at any point. You know, and I think that was probably a big problem with us in America. But then you get, you know, if I talk to somebody like yourself, they go, no, that's what we actually like.
Wanted to ask about, you know, the recordings that you guys have done and working with the producers, because I know you worked with Kevin Shirley.
We did.
You were working with Joe Elliott and also a guy named Nick. I can't pronounce his last name.
Yeah, I know. Nick Raskulinich.
Raskulinich. And also, I wanted to ask about new Black Star writers. Are you guys writing
Yep.
for the next album? Is there a new album?
Absolutely. We're going to the studio next
fire?
February.
Okay.
Right. So we're all ready. I think Ricky's probably already got the lyrics done. You know,
Excellent.
he's a machine. He's like the ATM machine. You know, can I get yeah, there you go. Okay, there you go. He's really that prolific, Rick. You know, I love that guy for that. I love his the timbre in his voice and all that. What he does on stage to be his. It's just great. He's got, once again, he's one of those guys that has a thing, you know.
Has the vibe and
Right.
the charisma.
Killer, man.
So do you find that there's times when you're writing or working on material, like I'm sure that certain songs, you know, like this is not a song, I'm sure even in Thin Lizzy, like this song's cool, but it's not really, you know, maybe we can sell this one to Michael Bolton or something. It's not really Thin Lizzy. Is there a time with Black Star writers where, you know, like this really sounds too much like Thin Lizzy, like maybe we should, I don't know if that ever happens.
You know, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, there's been maybe two like that I've kind of gone, listen, that's a little too close, maybe not, and of course I get outvoted, and we go ahead and do it anyway, right? But we don't seem to be playing those on stage, so you know, I'm okay with that. But now with the whole Lizzy thing, if we didn't like a song, say that Phil brought in, you'd have to go, and he was always working on like a solo album, right? That was a great get out for us, because we'd always gone, Yeah, I don't think it's really great for the band, you know, but that's going to be killer on your solo album.
Right.
You
Right.
go, well, great, okay. So most of what you hear on Phil's solo album is the ones that we rejected.
That's great because that's how it should be. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I guess what solo albums could be for
Yeah.
to some extent.
Sure. I mean, so at the end of the day, he had a pile of songs that he could
use?
just go, like, you know, use other musicians on and all that.
The fighting thing, I'm just so curious about.
Well, you know, I've nominated that several times for worst album cover ever. I just hate that album cover, and we did 2 versions of it too, and I can't for the life of me remember why there was 2 versions of these, because they were both equally as horrible as the other one, you know. So, but you know what? That's an album that Phil produced himself, because the on the Nightlife album we had a pretty terrible time. With it being myself and Robertson's first album.
So you're kind of struggling through it a little bit, or?
Well, on that first album, we walked away from that, knowing what it sounded like in rehearsal, to hear what the finished product was like on the record.
So was it the guitar sound? Was it the drums? Was it just the quality?
It was
of the
kind of
recording?
everything, you know. The producer, and I won't go into who the guy is, but he kept going, "Yeah, can you turn that down a little bit?" Right? Yeah, okay.
Now, I know you didn't want to mention the producer, but I did have a question about Chris Sangarides.
Okay.
He did a number. Now that wasn't Chris, or was Chris?
No.
So Chris, I had the pleasure of communicating with him recently before he passed.
Yeah,
and
it's a
so-
shame.
Really a shame. But you had a lot of great albums with Chris Sangarides.
We did. You know, he was a great guy to work with. Now, there's a guy that really could get you guitar sounds. Right? You just kind of
Definitely
mention what you're
killer
kind of
stuff he's
going
done.
for. You go, yeah, bang, bang, bang. What do you think of that? You know, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You know, so it's great to work with a guy like that can go in there and not take very long to get what you need to get what you want to get done.
So,
Right.
so from your perspective, I mean, would you say Chris Sangarides was more of a heavy metal guy, or was he more of like a hard rock guy, or?
I would say somewhere in between that, right? He can flip flop. He could flip flop both ways, and it could make the transition very, very easily. Right?
So back in the days of Thin Lizzy with Phil, and
We
working
had
in the
to
studio.
train.
So you did have to train, and were you writing stuff in the studio? Were you composing it from scratch?
We tried not to.
But how many songs would you go in for an album?
Oh,
And have already?
Well, you know, it varies at times
Are you-
of your career, because sometimes I remember there was one album that we just all showed up at the studio and like, so you got any songs? No, I thought you did, right? And now you're writing in the studio, right?
You don't remember which one that
I'm
was?
not gonna say what album
Okay,
it was,
okay. I love your work, so I mean.
but you know, we pulled it off. Somehow we pulled this damn thing off, and you
That's
know,
so cool.
there's a few songs you go, wow, we pulled that out of our ass. That was great.
But in the end, it all sounded like Thin Lizzy.
Yeah, I guess.
And people like me love it, so that's
Thank
what
you.
it is.
Thank you.
So for you personally, what would you say is some of the most highest points in Thin Lizzy?
This was it was a free concert, and they were only expecting maybe at the top end 5,000 people to show up, right? But what happened is, you know, I think 60 to 65,000 people showed up, and it's right there at on the steps of the Sydney Opera House. Now, this is their most famous building, right? And I know for a fact the city fathers, Sydney, came down and went, whoa, what? You know, and they were scared to death that, you know, things were going to get chipped off the building and all that. So I know they told us afterwards that they banned all concerts at that point because of that. Yeah, there was like news cameras, and the Aborigines are, you know, protesting down on this side, and helicopters are over here with the news thing and all this, right? So it got pretty wild, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. But since then, they've relented. There's a cap on it now. I think you can only have something like 3,000 people on those steps now.
So is there a chance of another Thin Lizzy reunion? You and Brian Downey, original.
Well, yeah, there's always that chance. I think even next year, you know, we're talking about possibly doing another 6 like we did a few years ago, or was that last year? Yeah, that was last year. But there has to be a reason to come out and do it, not just because
Right.
You want to make some money or something. You know, there's got to be a reason. You know, an anniversary of some sort, right? So there has to be a point to it, right? Because we really are concentrating on the Black Star Writers music. I mean, as much as we all love to death playing the Thin Lizzy things, we have a hard time not slipping in another Thin Lizzy song, right? I can tell you, but right now it's you know, blinkers are on, and it's Black Star Writers the whole way right now. And
you guys got a full-on tour with Judas Priest and Saxon, and you know, it's exciting to be able to see you live again.
Great.
We had that chance, and
a lot of fun. Yeah.
I just wish we had Phil on board to make some guest
You've
appearances.
been talking to him and not me.
No, I've been talking to you too, because you know, you guys were a team and are a team,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned.
That was a great team. I miss them. I still miss them to this day. But onward and forward we go.
So maybe you could share with us what Phil would say to you, or was there like some things that he, you know, like some people have certain things they say sometimes. Was there anything that Phil, you know, left you, you know, an impression in terms of like words that he would say, or
Well, not so
before a
much.
show or after?
No, not so much. You know, an expression or anything. It was just attitude. You know, just go out there and have attitude. Whenever you're on the stage, you never give up. If you're in the support slot situation, your whole job is to kick the guy's ass who's coming in after you, right? And that's the attitude we always took, you know.
So you guys
just
are
leave
really
enough
Killer
blood on the
Instinct.
stage, right? So they're slipping away, you know.
So the Killer Instinct title, that has a lot of meaning.
Absolutely.
Because I got that feeling like it was like a Thin Lizzy kind of themed kind of
Well,
vibe, and all hell's breaking loose. Another vibe of.
You're not too far wrong from that, you know. But you know, Phil just left me with, you know, the attitude. You know, this is the way we're going to work it. We're going to do this every single night. So I thank him for that, because it's too easy. You get too tired sometimes. It's too easy to give up, and then you go, nah, I'm here, man. We're going to kick some ass.
Thank you so much, Scott, for everything. And you're watching The Metal Voice with Scott Gorham from Black Star Writers
Killer.
and legacy band Thin Lizzy.
The man.
Neil Turbin, real man, Scott Gorham.
Boys are back in town.